Since time didn't allow for a more in-depth discussion of the health impacts from wireless devices at schools, we've gathered excerpts from our Best of Wired Schools collection. Follows is Associate Professor Olle Johansson, world-leading authority on health impacts from wireless technology, sharing some highlights from his lectures discussing mobile phone radiation, which is the same as that found inside and around our schools. Please keep in mind that the exposure effects are cumulative, and the earlier we start using them, the sooner we may expect serious conditions to present.
When I give lectures, for instance, I often start with showing a man who is holding his head against his hands against his head, and then the single word headache. And then I talk about some studies that have shown that, for instance, exposure from mobile phone radiation will cause headaches. And then I ask the audience, is that actually what you want for yourself, for your family, your children, maybe even for your pet dog and pet cat, that they all get headaches? And so far, through all these years, no one have stood up and said, yes, that's exactly what I want for my family, Not even people from the telecom industry, the manufacturers or the operators. No one wants to have that. So in a sense, we could actually stop there. We don't need to go deeper into things like tinnitus or cancer or neurological issues or DNA damage or bacterial interference. It's enough with the headache. And also I generally start my lectures with the second picture where scientists have shown that both newly born babies as well as fetuses, when you expose them to mobile phone radiation, they get a more shallow heartbeat, but faster. In layman terms, their babies and the new fetuses, they get a stressed heart. And again, when I ask parents, is this what you want to give to your babies? No one stands up and says, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want to give to my child. They are shocked. They get angry, actually, not with me, but yeah, they get angry with their health authorities, with their parliaments and governments who hasn't informed them. And as you said, people should be allowed to make an informed choice.
I questioned Professor Johansson about whether we were causing our own extinction. He responds here.
Yes, practically also, as you said at the beginning, maybe in the future, the children of today will grow up and start asking the parents, why didn't you do something? And for instance, here in Sweden, we could just leave the radiation issue for a few minutes and look upon the fact that since children spend so much time very close to cell phones, laptops, tablets, they become myopic, nearsighted, and it has reached such a level. So the transport authority here in Sweden, who is responsible for driving licenses, has remarked that very many children in the future will not be allowed even to try to get the driving license because they are too nearsighted. They wouldn't be able to use a car in a safe way. And oddly enough, we talked about tinnitus and hearing loss before. I've seen similar outcries here in Sweden regarding hearing. And, these earphones that people use, they are actually pumping very high energy amounts straight into the hearing system, wearing it basically out. And of course, if you don't see and if you don't hear, you would be in enormous danger in the traffic. And in so very many other instances, just imagine a girl or a boy who grows up and wants to be an airline captain, and they are saying, no, we cannot have people who cannot see properly and not hear properly. And that goes for so very many occupations.
I can relate to that.
Then as you said, the studies that actually go back quite a number of years or actually decades, pointing to impacts, for instance, on sperm cell count, sperm cell quality, motility, morphology. And also other studies that I've looked on fertility and showing that there could be a transgenerational effect, meaning that our grandchildren somewhere in the future cannot any longer produce new generations because something we did actually before 1994. And then the question is, how should they be able to call back and tell us that, please, could you stop this exposure? And one of the sort of big lessons for me has been that regardless of how this ends, from a scientific point of view, you can draw one very firm conclusion that since mankind is based very much upon greed instead of need, and that we tend to take the day as it comes and look away from the wolf that is in the forest. But one day the wolf will appear, and then we need to tackle the issue. But we cannot just look away. And as you know, when we talk about adverse health effects of artificial electromagnetic fields, like from cell phones and Wi-Fi routers, there are tens of thousands of published papers in peer-review-based scientific journals, and still society is just looking away. And it could end with the classical quote from the European Union, namely, late lessons from early warnings. And I have extended myself that quote into too late lessons from early warnings. And what you can draw as a conclusion is that if we keep on behaving so recklessly as we do now, there is just a matter of time before we will either kill ourselves or the rest of life on this planet. And if it's not through electromagnetic fields, it may be through nanotechnology, gene-modified organisms, or something yet to be invented.
Johansson further discusses using these wireless devices and their effects on social skills and learning in general. He shares his recommendation on who should take responsibility for children being harmed from this radiation before it's too late.
And here in Europe, this very big organization called OECD made a very big investigation, and they came to the very same conclusion: the more gadgets, the less good results in school. The contradiction actually here.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I'm really, really glad you brought that up. And,
Yeah.
you know, and in addition to all this technology, we're taking away their social skills.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're not talking to one another, their life skills. Who remembers a phone number anymore?
No, right.
It's so
And there are some very interesting studies from Norway, the neighboring country to Sweden, where they have studied the central nervous system imprint of muscular movements. For instance, when you form letters by hand compared to pressing buttons, where a K and an H will be the same movement.
Right.
To make it by hand made a very much better and faster imprint. They learned faster and better. And all of this is on the table, but industry and finance and whatnot, they are pressing on still. And I think we need to ask ourselves, do we actually know what we're doing to ourselves and to our children, as well as to all life forms on this planet? And first I was tempted to say, no, we don't know it. But actually, when I look in my computer with all the literature databases, I would say, yes, we do very well know what we're doing, but we need to act and react now.
Absolutely.
In the following clip, we hear from Tom Kersting, former high school counselor, licensed psychotherapist, and author of Disconnected, discussing harmful effects from electromagnetic radiation, or EMR.
A little over a year ago, September of 2019, I was doing a lecture. It was either in Texas or Tennessee, and sometimes I'll get the bulk of the lecture is about, you know, the brain neuroplasticity that's happening with kids, acquired attention deficit disorder, the mental health epidemic we have in our society, the unraveling of the American family as people just stare at their phones. And when I have time, I do get into some of the stuff that I happen to know about in terms of the harmful effects from the radio frequency radiation. So I was doing a lecture September 2019, a little over a year ago. And I can't remember, it was either in Texas or Tennessee. And I did get into that topic. And a woman probably in her 70s approached me after the lecture. And she said to me, I'd like to share a picture with you. My daughter, who's 42 years old, just had surgery yesterday to remove basal cell cancer from the side of her head that she had gotten from talking on her phone all the time. Now, I have the picture right here on my phone. You tell me if you want me to show it on the screen right now.
Show us, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And furthermore, so I'll share another personal story regarding this.
As sad as that is, it'd be good to share. Yes.
Yeah. I've had I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I've had a private practice for 20 years. Okay. So the town, I just moved offices last February. So I'm there 7 or 8 months now, right? The office I was at prior to that is in a town called Ridgewood, New Jersey. I was there for about 14 years, and I loved that office. And then one day they started literally about 15 or 20 feet away from my office window. They installed a cell phone tower, okay? The cell phone tower. And the reason for that, and I talk about it in my book, Disconnected, is that the cellular industry, talk about politics, the cellular industry is represented by an organization called CTIA, the Cellular Technology Industry of America. And CTIA spends $11 million per year lobbying to Congress to keep the federal regulations where they are, okay? So another quick story. Since I think it was I think it was spring of 2019, all right? So about a year and a half ago, there was a school in San Joaquin, California, an elementary school, where 4 children, elementary age children, developed brain tumors, right? I don't think they ever had a brain tumor in the history of that school in 50 to 100 years, right? And that has
sorry, Tom, where is the school? This is not the Ripon Elementary School.
I'm not sure what the name of the school is, but it's
That's what I was thinking of.
In the Western,
Elementary.
Yeah, it's in San Joaquin, California. Yeah, San Joaquin. So 4 kids developed that. So some of the smarter parents, questioned, because the school houses a cell phone tower on the property. They get $2,000 a month to lease it.
Yeah.
So they questioned, some parents said, this is really odd. Maybe it's because of this cell phone tower. So some of the parents got up in arms and questioned that. And they had the inspectors come in and evaluate the cell phone tower. And it was under the federal regulations of 100,000. I think it was like 75,000 megawatts per meter. So it was okay. And fast forward to fall of the following year, and 2 more kids developed some very rare diseases. And it was at that point that the school removed the cell phone tower. So, I think this is we're just seeing the beginning of what we're going to be up against. I had a radiologist, a woman, at another lecture about 2 years ago, and I addressed this topic. Woman had been a radiologist for 30 years and currently was. And she told me that she has never seen the quantity and various different types of cancers that she's seeing today. She's never seen anything like it, what's going on. And she never really thought about, what I was discussing about the phones and the cell phone.
Yeah.
Thank you for considering this information that only skims the surface of the many ways our children are receiving radiation from their devices. We encourage you to do additional research to make up your own mind. Also, please keep in mind that as role models for our children, they're watching how we use our wireless devices. Children are so much more vulnerable to the radiation due to their thinner skulls and developing blood-brain barrier. We hope you'll do due diligence and research before allowing your children to even have a cell phone. Due to the high price they pay for cumulative exposure to this radiation, they need to be able to use them responsibly and only for emergencies. Please see the link below to our playlist, Best of Wired Schools, where you'll find much more information on this important topic. Thank you for your time and consideration and for caring enough for your child to understand the hidden high costs of public schools. Bye for now.